What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today we're gonna be talking about the upcoming 2021 Olympia, which is gonna be, of course, the biggest event for all bodybuilding fans around the world of this year. So I need to talk about it, and I'll be doing my predictions, and I'm gonna be trying to go quickly, but of course, I want to look at the whole lineup, which is quite a lot of guys this year, so it's gonna take a bit of time. Okay, and let me just mention, this video idea was brought to my attention, sort of, even though it was not requested or anything. It was brought to my attention by Mark's Max Muscle, who commented on my video. So thank you so much for this idea, and definitely check out his channel if there's a viewer that doesn't know Mark's Max Muscle, which is not very probable. He has one of the best bodybuilding channels in the world, literally. So, anyway, let's get into the prediction list. First, we are not starting with real predictions, of course, because I need to mention some guys who are on the list of qualified competitors, or at least were there, but they're not competing, which are, of course, the three former Olympia champions, Sean Roden, Dexter Jackson, and Phil Heath. None of them is competing this year because they are probably retired, or in Sean's case, he can't compete. And there's one more competitor who unfortunately is not going to be there, and that's the guy on the right, Vlad Sukarachko. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but it's probably not. So sorry. He is a young, up-and-coming bodybuilder, very impressive. Even though he probably wouldn't be challenging for a top 5 position or anything, even close to that, he definitely would have liked to be on that stage, and he unfortunately can't because of some visa issues, as I understand it. So that's very unfortunate, and I hope he can get there maybe next year. So I just wanted to mention him and give him a bit of a shout out because he would definitely like to be on that stage, right? With the best of the best. So let's start with last place for the predictions. And this is, of course, no disrespect, these are just my predictions. But I expect this guy, Andrea Presti, to wind up in last place. He has got quite a bit of hype, in my opinion, because he's Italian, and there hasn't been an Italian on the Olympia stage for many, many years. So it's awesome that he's gonna be on that stage, and many people have said that they really are happy for this guy, and I am happy too for him, but I don't think he's gonna be one of the best on that stage. He needs more time because he's just too young, in my opinion. He qualified by winning the Portugal Pro, the Mr. Big Evolution, though, which is not a tiny small show, so he's very impressive too. He just needs to fill in his frame a bit more. With that being said, he's very aesthetic, so nothing bad about this guy's physique. I think it's gonna be enough for him to just stand on that stage and represent his country. He doesn't need to win, right? And one place ahead, I would put Hassan Mustafa. He qualified on points, and he just recently competed in the Arnold Classic, which is mainly the reason why I have him placing very low for a guy that's that massive, because Hassan is really a freak. He's a mass monster. But as you can see in these pictures from the Arnold Classic, he was very, very off-season mode in the Arnold Classic, and I don't think he can really fix that in such a short time period between these two shows. So even though he's massive and freaky, I think some of the smaller guys are gonna overtake him because he's not gonna be conditioned enough. But he's got much potential, so I hope he can come in conditioned. I hope he can prove me wrong, but I'm quite worried that this year is not gonna be it for Hassan. All right, and I know there's no difference between 17th and 16th place. I'm just having a bit of fun doing the entire lineup. I hope you can understand that. But now let's move on to the real placings, I suppose. In 15th place, I would have Mohamed Sheiban. He qualified on points because he wasn't able to win a show this year, but he placed very highly in some of them. So these pictures are from the Tampa Pro, for instance, which was his last show, I believe. He is a shorter bodybuilder, but he makes up for that by being very, very stacked and having muscle everywhere. He has giant quads, you can see that in every shot, and overall, he doesn't have a bad physique at all, even though he's not very aesthetic. I think we could all agree on that. But I think he's gonna bring grainy conditioning, and that's gonna put him over someone like Hassan. And in 14th, we have Patrick Moore. I think he's gonna beat Mohamed Sheiban because he already did this year in the Cali Pro, which these pictures are from and which qualified Patrick for the Olympia, right? So he is not a mass monster, but he is very aesthetic and his physique flows very well. And he's complete as well, so I think he's got a good chance on not being last, of course, and I would score him in 14th. And that might seem a bit low for someone who looks so good, but this is not how it works at the Olympia. It's not you look the best, so your physique is the most aesthetic, so you win. It's not like that. So of course he's not gonna win, in my opinion, and I would have him in 14th, which is a good placing at the Olympia. And in 13th, I would have Regan Grimes. He qualified by winning the Romania Pro, I believe, but it was last year, so he's been qualified for quite a long time, and we haven't seen him for a while on a stage as well, so we don't really know what to expect. We know he's bigger and he's put on some muscle, so that's of course great, and he knows how to get conditioned, right? So I hope he's gonna bring it and maybe place a bit higher than this because he has also a very flowing physique, and of course I wish him a lot of luck. And in 12th, I would have Rolly Winkler, who qualified by being second at the Europa Spain Pro. Now, Rolly Winkler is a former top 3 Olympian, so this is just quite ridiculous putting him in 12th, but he didn't look great at his last showings, and he wasn't even able to win a show, which normally for him would be not that hard, so he is a bit downsized, and he wasn't peeled either, so I don't think he's gonna do well in this year's Olympia, but I absolutely hope he proves me horribly wrong and he gets like 4th. That would be awesome. But I don't expect that this year. I don't know if he's past his prime or anything. I wish him a lot of luck as well. I just don't believe he can overtake some of the guys he did before in this year's Olympia. And so in 11th, I would have Akin Williams, and that's also so low for someone who was top 6 last year. But these pictures are from the Arnold Classic, and he doesn't look very conditioned in these pictures, and it's because he didn't quite nail it. When you look at his back pose, it's already not his strongest shot, the back double biceps, but he doesn't look very good in it at all because his skin looks very thick this year's Arnold's, and I don't think he's got enough time between these two shows to kind of fix that. He would need to be at this point, at the point that I'm filming the video, and so I don't know if he is. I hope he proves me wrong as well, but I don't expect him to make top 6, and I don't expect him to make even top 10 this year, even though he might easily, because he's very, very developed and he's absolutely massive. But in 10th, we have Nathan Diasha, who qualified by beating Rolly Winkler at the Europa Spain Pro, and he's a really, really good bodybuilder actually. He looks great in these poses, and I don't really know that much about him, but I think he's definitely gonna be in the top 10, even though it's to the lower end of it. I think he's got a good chance on doing that, and I think it's gonna be a good result for him. With that being said, I would have this guy, Justin Rodriguez, who just finished 4th at the Arnold Classic and qualified by winning Indy Pro. I would have Justin beating him. Even though I don't prefer this physique myself, Justin is very, very significant, I would say. He has a very unique physique because he's not that complete, let's face it, but he doesn't really need to because he's got some freaky body parts. And his posing here looks a bit sloppy, but it's not bad. He's just trying to be artistic, I guess, and he's got a good back development as well, so even though quite a bit of a wide waist, so we are gonna see what he can do with that, and I believe he's gonna be conditioned, not like 03 Ronnie Coleman, but of course, but in very decent condition, I believe. And in 8th, I would have Hunter Lobrada, who is from Chicago Pro, qualified, and he's also a young bodybuilder, of course, the son of the legendary Lee Lobrada, and he has got a good chance on being in the top 10 as well, of course. In my opinion, he's going to, because he's complete, I guess, for a young guy. He's got a few weaknesses, but he's gonna be pretty shredded, I expect, so, and very big, so he's not gonna seem out of his depth in that second call out at all, in my opinion. And in 7th, I would have someone who really surprised me, James Holland, winning the British Grand Prix, and I wasn't really paying attention to this guy. I had him like in the top 12, barely, I don't know, but I really wasn't putting him ahead of someone like Hunter. But then when I thought about it and I looked at the physiques, I really think he's gonna do very good because James, I think he has a better back than Hunter, and they're very similar in other aspects, so I'm not really sure, but I think he might beat Hunter this year. And James is gonna be very, very conditioned. I'm almost positive about that. Very grainy, and so I think we can expect a lot of big things from him at this year's. Oh, plus he's a mass monster, a shredded mass monster, so that always bodes well. And in 6th, I would have Ian Balliere, who won 2 shows this year, Texas and Tampa Pro. And a lot of people don't like his physique, I find, because they don't like that he's incomplete. And really, I'm not a fan of it either, but the judges are, and that's what matters at the Olympia. So would I have Ian placing 6th in this lineup? No, I would have him in the top 10 probably, but not in top 6. But I think that this is how it's gonna go because they're gonna award him like they do always. That's what I think is gonna happen, and I think he's gonna be better conditioned than at the Arnold Classic because he's gonna tighten up. But I don't know if that's really the case, of course. And he finished second at the Arnold Classic, of course, even overtaking Steve Kuklo. Should that have happened? That's another question, but he is a highly ranked bodybuilder these days, and I can't ignore that making this list. And with that being said, move on to the top five. I think William Bonac is gonna make it to fifth, just like he did last year. I think he's gonna look better than last year, but it's not gonna be enough to improve his placing because we have one more newcomer coming into that uh, and taking the placing instead of Phil Heath, in my opinion. But we're gonna get to that. William Bonac is super, super stacked, and he's always very conditioned. And I believe he's gonna look better once again than last year. But I think he's just gonna get outsized a bit by the taller or bigger competitors in the top call out. So I don't think he's gonna make it to the top, but I still think he's gonna be in the first call out. And in fourth place, I would have Brandon Curry. And I know he's making some improvements, especially in his legs, which he supposedly really needed. And he's got a tiny waistline and a good back and a great arms as well. But I just don't think it's gonna be enough this year. I don't know, really. He could be second easily. I think it's very tight between these. He could be first on that note if he makes really good improvements. And I expect him to probably improve very much from last year. But still, I think he is actually gonna move down from last year, and that's due to this guy, of course. I would have Nick Walker winning the New York Pro and the Arnold Classic in third. And I believe he's absolutely gonna be in the first call out because he's the best out of a bunch of guys that didn't do the Arnold Classic, and there was a lot of guys that are gonna be at the Olympia. So Nick is of course very young, but he's very complete, and he's just stacked with muscle too, packed with it everywhere, and he's got a wider waist too. But like, is that really gonna matter at the Olympia? I don't really think so. And he's not aesthetic. Who cares? He's grainy and he's gonna be conditioned and big, so that's what matters. And he also hits the mandatories pretty well for a less experienced guy, I suppose. So I definitely think he's gonna make a big splash at this year's Olympia and finish in the top four. And I would have him in third, even though he already made that splash at the Arnold Classic. So I don't know if that's gonna be surprising. But let's move on to runner-up. I think you can guess who it is. It's Hadi Toupen, because I don't think anyone is beating Big Grammy this year. Because Hadi, he's gonna be conditioned better than last year because he doesn't have the problem with the traveling or visa issues, and I think he's gonna look better overall. But I still think it's not gonna be enough to take out Ramy because Ramy is so much bigger, and I'm not even talking proportionately. I'm talking about his frame, and I think that's just what is gonna really put him over the top when conditioning and mass levels are similar to other competitors. That Ramy is just taller. I feel like the judges would prefer that. I don't know why. But Hadi is, of course, also pretty complete, even though his back isn't the best out of this group, and his arms are, of course, neither. But he's got great quads, and he's got a great waistline and very separated apps, so this is gonna really help him. And first, as I already said, this is big Grammy. I think no one's taking his place this year. I expect him to be better conditioned than last year, and maybe making some improvements to that back double bicep shot, because he doesn't really look good in it, in my opinion. I don't like he's missing half of his back, and he needs to do something about that, and I think he did. And I think he's gonna be just as big, or he's got size to spare, so he doesn't even need to. He just needs to have striations and a lot of good condition everywhere, and he's gonna make it, in my opinion, because he's also the reigning champion. So let me know what you think about my predictions. If you think I placed someone completely wrong, if you think they're gonna make top 5 and I put them in 17th, probably not, but you can tell me what you think about it, and thank you for that. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some 2021 Olympia videos, and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.